What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be taking a peek over here at the Bitcoin price chart, along with looking over there at the altcoin market as we get ready to wrap up the year of 2023 and head into 2024. Looking at the state of where Bitcoin is at right now, along with the nice recovery we've seen over here in the altcoin market here in 2023. After bouncing off of the 2017 and 2018 peak back in here as FTX collapsed back at the end of 2022. But also looking ahead as well over here at the stock market and really what my thoughts are currently right now as we get ready to go into 2024. And how my thoughts are that the first half of the year is probably going to be pretty exciting, but that there's a lot of complications heading after that. And the questions still remain on, is Bitcoin still following 2020, where we're just in some consolidation, getting ready for a massive run to happen with Bitcoin, as everybody anticipates a Bitcoin ETF to be approved in about 2 weeks from now? Or are we still just playing along to the tune of 2014 through 2016? Or have one of the theories and hypotheses that I've presented for the last several years been that Bitcoin's just going into a retracement? And that if we're going to be making a top very similar in here to the stock market as we did for Bitcoin back in 2021, wouldn't we be looking for something like this to be showing up for Bitcoin as well right now, if that's what we're anticipating to be happening in the stock market? And well, funny enough, if we actually do play along to that tune, we do have something very similar to that happening here with Bitcoin right now. And we'll talk about that in today's video as we look ahead, as we get ready to wrap up 2023. First of all, it's no surprise to anybody who watches this YouTube channel regularly that Bitcoin has been acting very, very similar to what it acted like back at the end of 2020 before it broke out and went absolutely rampaging to wrap up its bull run in the first half of 2021. Prices have acted incredibly similar in here to exactly what we were doing back in 2020. Here in 2023, and even right now consolidating as we did back in 2020. What's even more amazing about this too is that it even acted the same like this for the stock market at the time. In both circumstances of leaving that long range, even back here in 2020, here in 2023, as the stock market was pulling back with an ABC correction, the big narrative during both times is, look, Bitcoin is decoupling from the stock market. We're breaking out as the stock market is breaking down. That's what happened in 2020. It's also precisely what happened here in 2023. So there's no question the similarities of what's happening in macro and happening in Bitcoin, they're all very similar, because not only was this happening here, but also the stock market breaks into an all-time high here on December 13th, 2023, and it broke into a new all-time high here November 9th of 2020. And of course, with both of those time periods, we're talking like a year or two that it took for the stock market to go back and break those all-time highs. So all those similarities still align right in there from 2023 to 2020. Price structure, macro conditions, new all-time highs for stock market, new all-time highs for stock market, consolidations, just unbelievable similarities still happening in there. Also, a positive element to see is that the altcoin market has just been rampaging out of that 2023 and 2022 range during the whole time. These are types of things that are happening as we're getting ready to rock and roll, which is what was going on in here. As we could see in these circumstances, we essentially stayed stuck underneath ranges for a year and a half here in 2022 and 2023, and about 2 years here in 2018 through 2020. But when you lay down the Fibonacci's in here, once it finally escaped from the 0.236 Fibonacci retracement level, we were off and on our way. Here we go. We look here at 2023. We have finally escaped the 0.236 retracement level. All positive signs of what we've seen before, right? And one thing we unequivocally know is that each breakout in the stock market is when Bitcoin has had its major bull runs. 2013, 2017, 2021, they are all in coordination with the stock market at each major breakout happening. Every bull run with Bitcoin happens when it's happening with the stock market. So you see the new all-time high, it definitely opens the window of possibilities, right? It's not to say that Bitcoin will, because we've definitely seen all-time highs happen here for the stock market after bull runs, right? The 2017 bull run, We set a new all-time high here in 2019, and then in 2020 go into C19. Bitcoin does not set a new all-time high here with this break with the stock market. But we know that it has been a requirement for each of Bitcoin's bull runs that the stock market is in an actual breakout. So one condition has to be met, which has been met, right? Doesn't mean it's not a trick, but we know that has to be an element. And so the thing we need to be looking for in 2024, at least the thing that I'm like looking at like a hawk, is to see, are we going to be making a top? Are we going to be making a fake? Or is this a true breakout happening here for the stock market? My hunch is this is a fake due to what we see over here in the NDXT and, of course, those Fibonacci extensions of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This is the same height we went in the roaring 20s before the bubble popped for the Dow Jones in the 1930s. It's not just the Dow Jones that we have doing this. That's near its 4.236 extension. It's also the NASDAQ in here. You can see the NASDAQ awfully close to its 4.236 extension. And oftentimes what we see when we get near the peaks is we see the initial profit take. And that's an aggressive sell-off where you see that initial profit taking, very similar to what we saw happen with Ethereum and with Bitcoin back in 2021. That as we got very close, we have the initial profit take, then we go on and set the new high, only for it to hit the 4.236 extension and then roll over. And we know how close we are with that for the Dow Jones and for the NASDAQ. Not only that, but even the structure in here for the NASDAQ, this ending, you can just see it and kind of count it here. You build a little bit of a base here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the big pullback down into the base. That's exactly how this top came in here for Ethereum on the initial profit take that you see. Here's the base built. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pulls back down into the base. And we'll take that off there. You see we pull back down in here. Then you go off and hit the new high. And it's very short-lived. We also happen to have that same structure here on the NDXT as we did for Bitcoin back in 2021, where we have that initial profit take happen in here, where it pulls back down, bounces up, finds support on its preliminary support with an ABC correction as we did for Bitcoin in here, and then shoots its way up. And that's exactly what we've had happening in here, shooting its way back up. So in 2024, it's going to be a lot of looking for this stuff, but we could look back in our minds and reflect back on what was it like at the end of 2021. It was irrational exuberance, extreme excitement, YOLO longing, going crazy. Markets in general were just exciting during that time. So it means we're like heading into this, if this is the base case, right? Even in this like horrid situation long term, like you look towards the first half of 2024 and you say, well, what does it look like? It looks like a period of irrational exuberance, a period of excitement, a period of euphoria. Everything is going great. The bulls are mocking the bears, and the most Googled recession of all time will be capitulated on to say, we are obviously doing a soft landing. We've done everything. We're perfect. We're gravy. Kind of like in here, with Bitcoin, just admit it's a bear market, then it sets a new all-time high, and then it loses itself, right? So the things like what I'll be looking for heading into 2024 to say, hey, is this scenario still aligning? Right, it would be really just to see similarities to that, right? That it does set a new all-time high here for the NDXT, and that there is some type of pullback, whether that pullback does hold on top of the previous all-time high, or it does even dip all the way back down to hitting like the 786 Fibonacci retracement level, and then watching for that additional high to come in there, and then eventually the lights coming out on it. But this whole period here in the first half of 2024 would likely be incredibly exciting, mixed with a couple of scares, as we did for Bitcoin in here. But reflecting back on it, I don't think people were really that scared. People say, why would we set a new all-time high and not continue to? So then when we go back and we set it a second time, totally convinced this thing is going up forever. I can imagine that being the same circumstance here, right? If we set the new all-time high, do you really think we're just going to set the new all-time high and not keep going, right? Especially if we pull back and then we set it again, right? You know how it goes, right? So all this looks really exciting, right? But like, if I think of like, if we're going to have this type of structure happening in here, like we had for Bitcoin in 2021, and we have something like that showing up here in 2023 and 2024, would we see that happening over here on Bitcoin? And that's what's really interesting to me too, because as you guys know, my thoughts have been, we're going back into retracement levels. My thoughts have been, we're not going to be exceeding those retracement levels. Obviously, if this ends up being the case in here, that will be proven wrong. But like, even if we take that example, we take that price behavior like we're talking about over there on the NDXT versus Bitcoin, and we take that price action of what did happen when that new high got set over here, and just apply that to our current price action that we have right now to see that. Like this has been stretched for scale, but structurally they're doing the exact same things as they were back in then, right? You can see here's, initial support. Here's a resistance level, right? It gets stuck underneath here, sets the new low, goes back up to the resistance level and pulls back. You can see that happening over here as well, right? Here's a resistance level, hits it, goes and sets the new low, shoots its way back up to the resistance level and pulls back as we do in here, right? We break from the resistance level, then we come back and back test it as a support, and then just shoot our way all the way up. And you can just see that is really how this has behaved in here. Everybody's euphoric and everybody's like Bitcoin ETF. And what do we know about every financial product that's been released for Bitcoin? It's marked a reversal, whether it's Bitcoin futures or if it's BTO, which is the ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF, gets released at the top, marks the reversal. Whether it's BTI, which is the ProShares Short Bitcoin ETF, it gets released at the bottom, right? It gets released down here in June of 2022, right? Every financial product that gets released for Bitcoin, including futures in 2017, they all mark these reversals. And are we lining up at a timing for where another financial product is finally going to get released for Bitcoin? Everybody's euphoric. Everybody's front run it already, right? And that marks the end for Bitcoin. I laugh because it's just the polar opposite of what people would think, right? Markets always love to dish out the Max Payne of like everybody wants to be a fundamental analyst, right? You want to be a fundamental analyst and understand it and read it and not recognize, right? The time to sell is when everybody's looking for 100K. The time to buy is when everybody's screaming we're dooming because of FTX collapsing, right? Like when things are their most optimistic, that's when the tops come in. And when things are their most pessimistic, that's where bottoms come in. And here we go. We get back into retracement levels. We get back into the April levels. We're just barely shy of 702, right? What do we get? The ETF approval shoots it up. The market cap hits the 702. And it would just be so ironic, right? Wouldn't it just be absolute, after all the these we've talked about for all these years, that the market cap of Bitcoin gets back to the $1 trillion level, which is the 702 retracement. And that is the ETF release. It's where you have euphoria, excitement, irrational exuberance, retail investors all pile into the market because we're now going to go to the moon, and it all happens at the retracement levels, and that this ends up being the marker of the end, right? And I know it sounds really like doomy to be like talking about it in that manner, but it's having to really kind of have an understanding of when moments like these happen and when moments like these end up happening in the market. Take it off of VlogScope, just kind of put it into context in there of like when this stuff happens, like these big explosions that happen in here that only last, a matter of 19 weeks, or like when you get one like this back in here where you go from $10 billion all the way up to 79. This is 8 weeks for that to happen, and these moments are end of cycle type of things that happen in here, these crazy huge massive pumps where everything is absolutely nuts. They don't just show up in the middle out of nowhere when nothing's going on. They always come with the absolute euphoria, the absolute ending, and crazy stuff. So it's kind of just like trying to like pinpoint, are there things showing up to say we could be at like that super crazy moment happening in here? And super crazy moments happen when you're noticing that there's like an area where a top could come in. And so it's not necessarily to be like, doom, 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 or doom, doom, doom. It's to say, we're reaching that point where like the irrational exuberance stuff could happen in here. And that's when these style moments end up coming in markets. They don't show up in the middle. They show up right in the final. Everybody's euphoric. Everybody's a believer. Everybody thinks everything's going to be crazy and good. And that's how it always happens right there at the ends. And I presented a lot of this in the last couple of weeks that, there's enough time left on the timetable for it. Like, people believe that, the Fed cutting rates is going to be a great thing. And we look through it. We look through like the times when the Fed has been paused and the times when the Fed does like the first 1 or 2 cuts. And that timetable gets us there between like March and May, which is just the right amount of time to have some irrational exuberance happen in our market. And it's always just important to remember that, those times when they've happened in this market, they're always really short. They're short-lived, 56 days, 133 days. You go from 40 billion to 427 billion, 133 days. So I'm definitely excited for 2024, but I also look at it very similarly to like we did in 2021, where it's like there's going to be this pivotal change at some point within the year and having to kind of get ready for that, right? Like 2022 and 2023, it was all about really like focusing on like Wyckoff accumulation, focusing on the bottom, getting out of there. How many times did we look at Wyckoff accumulation fractals and structures and talk about last points of supports and springs and initial preliminary supports and all that stuff? That's what all of the 2023 was really focusing on, right? Cruel summers. And fortunately, we're heading into 2024 with a market that's just been rocking, right? And it looks like we're going to keep rocking into the early phases of 2024. And we have the chance of like hitting this point where a peak comes in. And when peaks come in, that's historically when crypto goes on the massive explosive moves that end up happening. But, you know, the thing that, you know, we'll be looking for is that the market in general is typically behind, right? Like they typically don't have the sight on it, you know, whether it's at the peak, you know, looking for 100K and it tops out at 60 something, or at the bottom, they're all looking for 12K for a whole year. The market has just been misguided on where we are like in cycles and stuff, right? Like thinking we're in some type of super cycle at the top, or thinking that we still had to, like we were acting like 2019 and 2020 or crash retrace, right? We kept having to say this market is not 2019, this market's not 2020. And that we're way deeper into this thing with Bitcoin than people assume. That like the peak of Bitcoin happened in April of 2021, and that's hard to understand when like the price peak happened in November of 2021. But the altcoin market tells us a story that it was that retrace, and when Elon Musk went on Saturday Night Live, that was the peak of the market. The day Elon Musk was on Saturday Night Live, and so we're really technically like almost 3 years into this thing, and enough time has elapsed for just a complete reset of the market. But if you're looking for something explosive to happen, those things typically show up at end of cycle stuff. Everybody's convinced the market's wicked bullish. Everybody's crazy. Everybody's a big risk taker. And that's those moments where the market, you know, goes nuts. And hate it or love it, retail loves to do it at tops. They don't touch bottoms. They go after tops. And we're starting to see that. And it might be crazy. And we might end up getting the Bitcoin ETF stuff. If it even happens, I've been very skeptical that we'll even get it. But if it happens, you know, at the retracement levels. So I think we have a lot of the elements that, you know, you look for when it comes to cycle peaks. With cycle peaks is extreme risk taking, and, you know, everybody's confident, everybody's a winner. And those are always the moments when stuff like this ends up happening, is at cycle peaks, right? The craziness doesn't just show up, you know, unless there's some irrational exuberance. And it feels like we're approaching that moment of irrational exuberance into 2024. So I'm truly excited. And I don't present this to be a doomer. It's to build the case that, hey, you know, something crazy could come in this market because we're entering into that type of phase. But going into 2024, it's a different story than 2023. 2023 was super focused on rounding out that bottom, Wyckoff accumulation, getting the breakout. Guess what? We've got it. They said it could never be done. It's up over 200% off the lows in 2023. Now we move on to new phases beyond Wyckoff accumulation. We're done with that now, right? We're totally done with that. And I think that's a hard thing to think about because we've talked about it for so long, but we're done with Wyckoff accumulation. We now move to phases of retracements, liquidation back tests, and then seeing if we can get, you know, enough juice to shoot our way out completely with some irrational, crazy, wild action. And that's going to be the focus of 2024. So it's an exciting way to end off the year. It's an exciting way to start off the new year. You know, you got to kind of expect there's probably going to be some selling at some point, likely into the new year. We'll then be a whole year beyond the FTX collapse. We'll be in a new tax year. We'll be in long-term capital gains taxes. I'm going to bet that we'll see something show up there in January where there's a little bit of selling happening in there for tax purposes. And it's to be expected. You know, there are bumps that come along the way. We have been very spoiled since October with how straight up this thing has been. But it certainly is exciting to go into 2024 just like this. And, you know, I really want to just kind of present my case on my thoughts on how I'm looking at the market. You know, there's going to be a lot of different takes on there. There's a lot of huge funds that put out their whole reports that have totally different views than what I have. But when I come on here and make content on the channel, you know, I always have some type of view looking forward that I'm having. And For all of 2022 and 2023, it was about rounding out this bottom and Wyckoff accumulating and moving up. And now it's about, all right, well, where's the next phase? And it's like, well, okay, now we approach the uncertainty point of the retracement levels. Now we watch what the stock market's going to be doing up here at these 4.236 extensions and these distribution structures. And that's just, how I'm looking at the market. You're going to find a lot of different opinions on the way people are looking at the market. Some people think all of it is nonsense because the Bitcoin ETF means everything, right? But I'm looking at it from this aspect. I'm looking at it from, hey, we Wyckoff accumulated as we expected. We're breaking out as expected. We're getting back to the retracement levels, which is typically where the road gets very bumpy up there. But we're also approaching this phase where we could be topping in the stock market. And if we're going to be topping in the stock market, that's typically where retail investors become irrationally exuberant, euphoric, and crazy, and huge risk taking. And anytime we see big moves that happen like this in these markets, these are at the end of cycles, right? This is just marks the end, right? Marks the end, the big, big moves. And so if you're looking for the big fat move, well, those have always shown up at the end of market cycles. So are we approaching a potential period where we could be nearing the end of a market cycle? And it sure seems like it. So it wouldn't be, hey, here's just your daily dose of hopium today that we're going to get shooting off. It's like, well, when do these things show up? They show up at the end of market cycles, right? They're like that final euphoric, crazy wildness at the end. And are we approaching a time that could be that? It seems like we could, because this is what it's like every time right before we get into the Fed cuts. So that's the way I'm looking at it right now. And just to going into 2024, there's going to be bumpy spots. There's going to be really big bumpy spots. So we're just going to have to take it as it comes at that time. But it does seem like we're getting to a point where there could become the irrational behavior of the market as it totally buys the soft landing narrative. And for that, I'm excited. So, all right, I will quit with my rambling. It feels good to be back. I've been off for a week for Christmas vacation. I just got done with markets in the morning a little while ago. Feels good to be back with the community. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Of course, if you're looking for something to do, you can check out my website over here, which is bcbacker.com. This is a course with over 40 videos and 11 hours of content in here that I personally recorded this year, deep diving into the historic behavior of the cryptocurrency market, teaching you how to set up your own charts and indicators, and how to read Wyckoff accumulation and Elliott wave theory. A lot of historical behavior stuff and additional stuff in here, developer data, and why percentages matter so much, not so much the price, tokenomics, crowd behavior, right? Irrational exuberance or extreme negativity after FTX. And all that really kind of ties in as well as with emotional management. It does include downloadable PDFs in here. So for a lot of the stuff in here, you may want to have your own PDFs. I've got those all made for you. You can download them. It's $39 one time, no subscription fees for this guy, $39 and it's yours. View it all and enjoy. I do write a monthly newsletter. I actually put out 2 per month over here on Substack. It's at blockchainbacker.substack.com. We just got done with this series over here with case study going in through all of the different stuff that mattered in 2020 and 2021 for the best performers of the crypto market to try to find some confluence between a better portfolio compared to rather than just shopping in the top 10 or the top 20. Found a lot of interesting data in here. And this most recent one, it was kind of like a compilation of the last 3 doing into developer data, circulating supply inflation and percentage drawdowns to try to formulate, could you have used any of that data to build a stronger portfolio in 2021, which we absolutely were able to do. I think we outperformed the top 20 by 4x by doing that stuff and using that stuff in there. Then we went ahead and did a case study of all that same criteria, what would match those with the coins that are available today here in 2023 and 2024. Again, this is available over here on Substack. There are links in the description of this video to bcbacker.com and to blockchainbacker.substack.com, which is available in the description of all of my videos and live streams. I hope that you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's great to be back, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.